Alright, so I've attempted to record this thing a couple of times now, and every time I've tried to do it, I have eventually stopped talking about the video game and started talking about exclusively the album. So you know what? I'm going to give up all pretenses and just make this a review of the soundtrack to Sayonara Wild Hearts. Sayonara Wild Hearts is a self-proclaimed pop album video game, and you know what? I can't think of a better descriptor for it. You're essentially paying anywhere from $12.99 to free if you got in on the Apple Arcade free trial to get a interactive music video, and it's great. It's fine. It's fantastic. The interactive music video thing describes it perfectly, and if that sounds like something you're into, go check it out. But we're not here to talk about the game. We're here to talk about the soundtrack, and honestly, this soundtrack, I have not thought more about a soundtrack in a while since any other besides Supergiant Games' output. And you know what? We'll talk about that. Maybe we'll make a video about that. That'll be my next video, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Sayonara Wild Hearts and its fantastic soundtrack album. Honestly, does this count as a soundtrack? Because it kind of seems like the game is made for the music aside, instead of the music being made for the game. But you know what? We'll talk about that later. Sayonara Wild Hearts is this incredibly retro-feeling synthwave, bubblegum pop music album that's just absolutely and utterly one of the best things I've listened to in a while. This is a game that I intended to, like, I played this game solely for the soundtrack. Like, the gameplay comes secondary to the music, and the music is excellent. Each and every track is a sort of, it's very synthy, it's very poppy, it's very upbeat, while at the same time a bit sad and melancholic. This entire album takes you through a story and an entire just multitude of feelings that I'm not used to feeling in music. Like, usually, music is something that I've always put in the background. Very rarely will I just sit down and listen to an entire album. I need to be either told to do this, or it needs to be something that impacts me in some very visceral way. There are a few games that have hit me just at the right point, or have just resonated with me to the point where I've consumed all media and thus have consumed their music in such a way as to the point where I sit down and just chill out and listen to the music by itself. And it's been a couple of years since the last time a video game did that to me, and Sayonara Wild Hearts has once again proven to me why I love music. Why it's one of those soundtracks that makes me go, oh, this is why I've spent so much time attempting to make music. This is why I've spent so much effort and money into learning how to use a modular synth. It's just soundtracks like these which show me what you can do with music that just reinvigorate my love for the medium, both as a listener and as someone who would one day like to be considered a creator. But yeah, this soundtrack it's primarily a collection of, there's a lot of instrumentals, and they outnumber the actual vocal performances, but the songs with vocal performances are, for the most part, sort of love songs, speaking of loss, speaking of love, speaking of finding yourself after losing love, and they're just great. The self-titled song, the first song you encounter when you play the video game, and on the album when you stream it or digitally download it, is Sayonara Wild Hearts, and it's this very sad, melancholic song about how this person seems to have lost the love, and how they're saying goodbye, and how they kind of don't want to, but they have to, and it's incredibly melancholic, and it's one of the best songs in the album, as befitting for a self-titled song. But it doesn't stop there. It continues on, and one thing I love about this album is how it evolves even within itself. The first few songs are incredibly melancholic, but as time goes on, things become more upbeat, more hopeful, and just, like, The song immediately following Sayonara Wild Heart, Begin Again, speaks about beginning once again, about restarting the process, about recovering, but it's still on the melancholic song and is one of my favorites. And I honestly think this is the second favorite song on this album, which is also fighting with Wild Hearts Never Die, which is one of the later songs in the album, and it's a more upbeat, more just hopeful look at the future. It's using a lot of the same wordage, a lot of the same sounds, a lot of the same feeling, but at the same time it's put in such a way that it's more hopeful, and it's lovely in such a way. I can't describe it. There are so many emotions that, like, I try to think of an example, but it's just not happening. Like, I just love the vocal performances of these albums. Not to say that the instrumentals are bad or forgettable. The instrumentals are all incredible. All of these instrumentals have all gone into a playlist of stuff I want to listen to while I'm relaxing, while I'm studying, things where I need music that makes me feel better. The instrumentals are all standouts in and of themselves. Pretty much all of the Heartbreak songs are fantastic. They're fantastic to listen to in the background. One of my favorite instrumental songs is the song Parallel Dimensions, which is just fantastic, partly because it's just that good, partly because it's in one of the levels that's the most challenging and has the most interesting gimmick, to the point where I wanted to chuck my iPad across the room, but I didn't do that, and instead got out my PlayStation 4 controller, paired it with it, and decided to play the game with a controller, because up to that point I had been playing with touch controls. And just, there's something, like, I'm someone who gets frustrated easily, who gets flustered easily. Like, if I read something upsetting, or if I see something upsetting, I have to put down what I'm doing and walk away and sort of decompress for a bit. I'm not the kind of person who sticks around with something. It's one of the reasons why I consider it a big achievement that I beat something like Dark Souls, because that's a game where you bash your head against a wall, and just the presentation of that game and the music, which is one of the things that kept me going, is just so good that it sort of let me power through that. And the fact that this is a game on a mobile game on portable devices, something that would be so simple to just shut down and put down and walk away from, but it still kept me going, just tells you how good the music is. And one of my favorite songs at the very end is, just my favorite song in general is The Melody of Death, something something or another. I can't remember the full title, but it's like a collection of names and titles, and basically this is a sort of repackaging of a few instrumentals and a few of the vocal songs, all arranged together to tell the entire story of the game in a condensed 8-minute period. And I love it because it's just arranged in such a way where you get the entire message of the game and of the album itself in a more compact form, and it doesn't invalidate any of the less of the previous stuff, but just helps put it in a new light, put it in a more condensed light, and just tells the story, and I love it. And also the fact that the last level drops any pretense of subtlety and goes and turns what was already a very blatantly gay game into a fabulous and gloriously gay game, and I just love it. Like, this game and this soundtrack to a lesser extent are unapologetically gay, and I love it. It is fantastic. This game is sort of the textbook definition of quality versus quantity. You have less than an hour of content, and it is all executed beautifully. It is phenomenal. Sayonara Wild Hearts, the album / soundtrack / I don't know. I don't know what this counts as, but this is a fantastic game, and you should totally check it out if you have any interest in video games, in video game music, or just music in general. If you have no interest in video games, this can totally something you should download. This gets bought the album off of iTunes and pre-ordered the vinyl got it for free on the Apple Arcade, which, if I do my math right, roughly translates to a 10 out of 10. It's a fantastic album. If you like synthy pop music, this is something you should listen to, regardless of whether or not you like video games or not. Anyways, that's been my review. What do you think of the Sayonara Wild Hearts franchise soundtrack? Is there any other games with this quality tier of music? Do you think that this should be considered a soundtrack to a video game or an album which has a video game attached to it? I don't know. You tell me. And if you like this video, like it. And if you disliked it, there's a button for that too. Comment, subscribe, and ring the bell. You know what? I really actually like doing this, so I'm going to do more soundtrack reviews. I don't know what I'll check next time. No, wait. I know exactly what I'll check next time, and I'll tell you all when I'm done. Goodbye. Y'all have a nice day.